Greetings and welcome to Elect Connect, a candidate forum that's hosted by the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. I'm Mary Morgan, the Chamber's Director of Advocacy and Public Policy, and today we'll be talking with Jeff Kehr, who's a candidate for the Monroe County Circuit Court position in Division 8. But first, I'd like to just take a moment and thank our sponsors of Elect Connect. Without them, this would not be possible. They are German American Bank, Bunger & Robertson, the City of Bloomington, Hoosier Energy, Indiana University, and Smithville. Again, we'll be talking with Jeff Kehr. He's running in the Democratic Party primary as a candidate for the Monroe County Circuit Court Division 8 seat. And welcome, Jeff.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So I guess I'd just like to start out by having you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in running for this position.
Absolutely. So I've been here in Monroe County 30 years this year. I came here in 1990 for undergraduate at IU. I majored in economics and history. I have a BA in both of those and a certificate in business management through the Liberal Arts and Management program in the Honor School. And then I went to law school here. I graduated in 1997. I came to our office in 1996 as a legal intern, and I've been there ever since. So I've held many positions there. I actually worked under a certified legal intern rule before I was ever admitted to practice in 1997. I was doing 3 courts of misdemeanors at that time. And then I passed the bar and was admitted to the bar in November of 97. And I took over felonies in January of 98. And so I've held many positions, felony positions. Most recently, I'm the first deputy prosecutor in our office, which is essentially the third in command of our office. And I've held that position for 10 years now.
Okay. And what is it that, why are you interested in running for this particular office?
Sure. So I've been in practice, as I said, approximately 22, 23 years now, all of it in public service. I thoroughly enjoy what I do, but I feel like I've accomplished about everything that a prosecutor could accomplish. That includes, I've tried several murder cases and vehicular homicide cases. I have supervised in our office. I supervise 15 other prosecutors now. I take the calls on a daily basis from the police seeking search warrants. I make charging decisions, which are quasi-judicial. So I've done about everything you could expect a prosecutor to do. And I've developed a skill set from that I believe is useful and transferable to a judicial position. And I would like the opportunity to use that skill set at the next level.
Okay. Well, I think you might have answered this question. If there's anything you want to elaborate, we're interested in how you think your particular background and experiences make you best suited for this role. And you've touched on that a little bit.
A little bit. First of all, I have a great deal of trial experience. I've tried over 50 felony jury trials. And through that, not only do you have to know the rules of evidence well, the trial rules and jury rules and other rules of court, but you also are there firsthand and you know how to conduct a trial because you've seen it done. I've encountered about every conceivable trial snafu you can imagine. So that helps me be knowledgeable. So if I am to preside over a trial, I feel like I could slip into that role fairly comfortably. Additionally, as I alluded to earlier, I do perform a quasi-judicial function now in the sense that I review police reports every day to determine what, if any, charges are appropriate. And that involves weighing facts and circumstances and what I believe we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. So I think I have to exercise a great deal of judgment in doing that, just like a judge would have to on the bench. Mm-hmm. Okay. Also, in supervising 15 other prosecutors for the last 10 years, I've got management skills that I believe are also important for a judge to have. There's court staff and other folks that come before the court where those skills I think are helpful and useful. I've also been involved with managing budgets, with grants, so I feel like I've done through my current position. I developed so many skills. I should also add, collaboration is something else that I'm used to doing. I'm used to being involved with judges and other prosecutors, police officers, probation officers, treatment providers, and working on efforts. And I can cite various efforts over the last several years where I've been involved in improving our criminal justice system.
Okay, great. Well, that's a good segue into the next question, which is, what are some of the biggest challenges you think are facing our local judicial system, and how would you address those challenges if elected?
Sure, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about jail overcrowding. I understand that has eased a little bit with the COVID-19 pandemic that we're experiencing now. But there are certain things, the pretrial release program that we are a pilot county for, that the Indiana Supreme Court has mandated, that has eased the overcrowding as well. People are released on certain restrictions without having to post bail. They're given risk assessments. The important thing about that, I think, is that we are mindful of the fact that we have safety of the community is a very important thing we need to consider there. So the judge has a lot of discretion there. So I would certainly want to continue with that program. And if the Supreme Court mandates it, we'd have to anyway. But I think that's something that can be useful, you know, if we're mindful of the fact that the community safety needs to be upheld as well. Also, I'm aware of traumatic brain injuries is something that the studies have been around for a while, but it's something where I've had an occasion recently to talk to a local expert on these matters. And I realize it's not just mental health and substance abuse disorder issues that affect the litigants that we have before us, both civil and criminal. But it could also be a traumatic brain injury, and we have to be able to spot those. We have to diagnose those. And then once they're diagnosed, we have the ability to deal with something like that. So that's something that I would be supportive of as well. I think that's a challenge ahead. And as I alluded to, the mental health and substance abuse is also a challenge ahead. This ties in with jail overcrowding with the Crisis Diversion Center that we've been working on here. I've been in a couple of those meetings, and I support getting low-level nonviolent offenders diverted from the jail and getting them the help that they need as well. I would also add that I think a challenge is case management, the volume of cases that we're dealing with right now. I know you're aware there's a criminal justice study that we're all anxiously awaiting the results on. But I feel like one thing we can do is we can have attorney conferences, more attorney conferences where the client or the litigant is not present. And we could schedule more of those than we could schedule pretrial conferences. And if we block schedule with the attorneys, the defense attorneys, then I think we could be more efficient with that.
Okay. Good.
And I would also add that, you know, if you're on time, you run court on time, there's a lot of good things that flow from that as well.
Good. So Monroe County Circuit Court doesn't operate in a vacuum, obviously. What changes do you think need to be made in the community overall to support the judicial system? And sort of related to that, what state level changes should we be advocating for?
Right. I think, you know, community education is certainly important. You know, with this pretrial release program, if you look at it on its face, you could conclude, well, we're releasing some folks that shouldn't be released without having to post bail or something like that. But if we're able to get the information out to the community, that there are risk assessments, there are safeguards, that we're being conscientious about this sort of thing, then I think that is something that if we can make the public more aware of, I think that'll be more successful. I think we're very fortunate here in Monroe County. I feel like we have a very enlightened community. And I feel that way with regard to substance abuse and mental health disorder. I think we have a lot of treatment providers here. I think we have the Stride Coalition. So I feel like we're already ahead of the game here in Monroe County. So I would say just some more education is always helpful so that they understand what the courts do, because I think the courts are sometimes this mysterious thing that folks are just sort of maybe even afraid of or afraid to know about. And we need to be transparent and let folks know.
Well, that actually relates to our next question, which is, you know, as you alluded to, many people are not familiar with the circuit court system.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm interested to know if you had to pick, you know, the top 2 or 3 things that you think the public should know, what would those be?
I think that, well, one, I would want the public to know that there are a lot of really dedicated people working in this system right now. They're working long hours, you know, sometimes for not as much pay as they perhaps deserve. It really, when you're on the inside of it, it functions remarkably well. And I think people should be really proud of the way it functions and the way that just the attitudes of the people who are working inside of it. So I want people to know that even though this may seem mysterious and they don't know what's going on, there is a lot of work behind the scenes to make all of this successful on a daily basis. And so I think that's important for people to know. I think it's important for people to know how important our problem-solving courts are to this community. We've been, I think we celebrated our 20th year last year with the drug treatment court. I was there from the beginning. It's really a great program. It's now expanded into 3 other problem-solving courts as well. And I don't know that folks know that we have a veterans court. And so for veterans who are suffering from PTSD, that's a very good place for them to be if they find themselves in the system. We have a reentry court where people are coming out of prison early and sort of transitioning rather than just being sort of just dumped on the street without anything more. So I think, and you know, I think those courts function well, and I think those are helping to rehabilitate people and, you know, making the system work around here. So in terms of something else I think they should know, in cases where, in family law cases, where there are substance abuse issues within the family, if the Department of Child Services doesn't make it a CHINS case, then it's very difficult for the courts to deal with that. A guardian ad litem can be appointed, and there are some options there. But especially from a budget perspective, it's really hard for a court to function when DCS is sort of the gateholder there. So I think if something needs to be done at the state level, it's some changes there that would help the local courts get the substance abuse treatment that's needed for the families.
Okay, great. Well, that concludes our questions. Are there any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Just that I believe I like everybody involved in the race here. I think we have a lot of good people running. I think that experience is certainly one thing, but it's the quality of the experience that I think makes the difference. Has somebody been practicing for X many years, but what have they done during that time? I think is important to look at. And so I would like people to look at what I have done with my time, with my 22 years, what have I accomplished? What skills have I developed? What the trials I've done, that sort of thing. So.
Okay. Well, thank you again for joining us today. As a reminder, we've been talking with Jeff Kehr. He's going to be running in the Democratic Party primary for Monroe County Circuit Court Division 8. One more shout out to our great sponsors for Elect Connect: German American Bank, Bunger & Robertson, City of Bloomington, Hoosier Energy, Smithville, and Indiana University. And finally, just would urge you to vote in the June 2nd primary election. All voters are eligible to vote by mail, and we would encourage you to do so. You can get more information on how to do this at the Monroe County election website, which is monroecountyvoters.us, and at our chamber website, chamberbloomington.org/2020-primary-election. Thanks again for joining us.